The Australian Institute of Progress, a centre-right economic and political think tank, says that the sudden putting into administration of the CFMEU around the country is just window dressing meant to get Labor off the hook for decades of collaboration with various unions, which has encouraged violence and lawlessness. AIP Executive Director Graeme says the Labor Party has a conflict of interest because, quote, 50% of its party is owned by the union movement, along with more than 50% of its parliamentarians, unquote. Mr Young says this leads directly to the flourishing of unions like the CFMEU and governments favouring union interests over voter interests, and this compromises not just our industrial relations system, but our total system of government as well. Until there is reform of industrial relations and depoliticisation of the union movement, he says, corruption will flourish. The connections between the unions and the Labor Party are clear to see, and denials from the Colonel Clinks in the government that they knew nothing should be laughed out of every media conference. One top Australian alternative union official has some very different and deeper insights into how the whole game works that might shock you. He says that we taxpayers pay on average between 50 to 100% more than we should for all government construction work. Just let that sink in for a moment. Graeme Haycoft is the founder of the Red Unions, alternative unions for nurses, teachers, general workers and even doctors. And the Red Unions are growing fast. The Red Union was set up to ensure that members' money is used only for members' services and isn't going to help or support politicians or left-wing political campaigns in any way. Graeme's background involves a study that he undertook about 30 years ago now, in which he uncovered, he believes, the real problem, the root problem within our building industry and why those costs are so high. And Graeme joins me in the studio now. Graeme Haycoft, we are very honoured to have you here, sir.
It's good to be here, Damien.
Now, you wrote this document, which I'll just hold up to the camera there for a second, but this is the background to building industry reform. You wrote this sponsored by Labour Hire Australia in the late 1980s, early 1990s.
Mid-90s, yeah.
Mid-90s. What did you find?
Well, I had a Labour Hire business at that stage.
So you were hiring out workers
to
construction companies.
We were on the site, and the CFMEU was starting to control the building sites, and I had a resolution that either they were on the work sites or we were on the work sites. Pretty simple. There was no sort of happy compromise.
Right.
So we worked out that in order to do that, with a bit of help from David Russell QC, that we needed to change the contract structure and we needed, in effect, to control the site. So we set a set of rules, and we found, interestingly, that to keep the CFMEU off the site, the best way to do it was to ban the Master Builders Association documentation, which every builder used to use in that.
Hang on a minute, the Master Builders Association is the construction industry, that's the builders, that's right. That's their association.
That's right. We discovered that they were in partnership together. Effectively, they are in partnership. They have a mutual interest in each other's affairs, right?
Okay.
The major contractors in Australia are all effectively control the Master Builders Association. So that's their representative group. And the CFMEU, if you like, are the cover for the real problem in the building industry. The CFMEU are not, yes, they cause trouble and they look like they're illegal and, you know, everyone says, oh, they're dreadful, we must do something about them. But they're not, they are covering the real issue. And the real issue is there is effectively collusive tendering between the major contractors for all government work. So the only way you can get, the reason things are 50 to 100% higher is because the tenders are that much higher and no one does anything about it. And when you have a look at the tender process, it's a very restricted group and it's artificially restricted. Now,
so you're saying that the companies that are tendering for our building construction works, most of which are paid for and managed by state governments, about 80% state, 20% federal for government works, these building companies are more or less in cahoots with the union or quite happy for this cosy kind of arrangement to exist because it drives up the prices and then gets more money out of taxpayers and government.
Yeah. Now, the Labor government minister, the Works minister, just said, oh, righto, guys, you can tender for whatever you like, and, you know, you can pay the CFMEU and the workers whatever you like, and whatever fees you want to pay the CFMEU is okay, blah, blah, blah. And, of course, the CFMEU is actually part of the Labor Party. This is the other thing to remember. They are not separate. The CFMEU is an arm of the Labor Party. The nurse unions are an arm of the Labor Party. The teacher unions are an arm of the Labor Party. Money that goes to them doesn't get distributed to the ALP. It's used by the people in those unions to support the ALP.
So basically, and this is why I think you set up the alternative unions, right? The red unions. I think we talked about this last time you were on the show. But basically, people are paying union fees. The unions are not allowed by law to just give money to the ALP. Yeah. They can make small donations, can't they, or something?
Yeah,
but they can't hand over, right. Okay, but what you're alleging is that they're actually over-servicing or have too many staff in the union, and those staff spend a lot of their time supporting the ALP in other ways, or supporting left-wing causes and issues in other ways, which are legal, but, you know, not exactly what the intention perhaps was of the people who are taking out these union memberships are expecting.
Let's do some numbers. You know, we've got about 21,000 members now. It costs us about $400 to provide the union service per member per year. But there are real economies of scale. If you've got 40,000 members, you could do it easily for $250, right?
Per head.
So per head, yeah. Now the nurse unions charge $750. The teacher unions charge about the same on average.
Right.
So there's $500 that's not needed to provide the service.
Right.
The CFMEU charge something like over $2,000.
What?
That's right.
It's $2,000 to be in the CFMEU.
Yeah, the guys are pretty well looked after. They get paid
yes,
for it.
clearly, yeah.
But they don't have to do anything. So all that
We're paying that. The taxpayers are paying that basically because they're getting high salaries. They're paying the $2,000 union fees to keep those high salaries.
So
and wear the mugs.
That's right. So the CFMEU doesn't, you know, they give them occasional donations. They do that so that the LNP have got something to whinge about. Right? To say, oh, they're dreadful, they're naughty, you know, they shouldn't do that. They should return those donations. But they're only pin money. You know, the big money stays in the organisation, and the CFMEU just does whatever they like to support the Labor Party and the Greens, whatever, to stay in power and to keep the system. So every time the CFMEU put on a start and say, we're a day off for ice creams or something, that's just an add-on cost that the contractor picks that cost up, gets passed on to the taxpayer, goes back down through the CFMEU, and is used to support the ALP. So the role of the CFMEU is...
Nothing illegal is going on here, and we're not alleging anything illegal. It's just the game.
That's the game. It's been going for 50 years, right? So what happens is that they cover up, so the Labor Party are quite happy with this. The Works ministers do whatever you want to charge, guys. It's when the LNP stumble into power every now and again that the importance of the CFMEU being a big, bad, naughty criminal organisation comes into play.
Well, you're about to have in Queensland the LNP probably back in power again.
Yes.
So will they clean all of this up?
Well, if they could, but I don't think they will, because they don't understand how any of it works, for a start.
Right.
Right. They think that the Master Builders Association is on their side. It's fairly easy to change. You have to introduce open tendering. So anyone must be allowed. You then got to have
Why don't we have that now? I thought we had that now.
Well, if you have open tendering, you're not going to get a 50 to 100% increase in the tender prices, which is going to flow through to the ALP.
Got it.
Got it. Simple as that. So the only real danger is when the LNP get in. And they could introduce open tendering, introduce a building code, which they did in Campbell Newman's day, which sets aside all the egregious practices, so that what the arrangements do now is that they complicate the arrangements so that it effectively applies against the smaller contractors. So the bigger ones have a huge advantage.
Oh, I see. Okay. So again, there's no pushing them out. It's just that they're forced out because they can't meet these bureaucratic and...
Yeah, they need to get public liability, 500 billion or something, all this sort of crap.
Okay.
All that.
So it keeps the small business out again.
That's right.
Right. Biases to big business.
So you need a building code, you need to have open tendering, and you need to have security on site. So you need to introduce the sort of documentation that we did 30 years ago. Wouldn't be hard to do, knock it up in a week.
Just tell us what you did 30 years ago. You actually had, was it 12 building sites in Queensland, never been done anywhere in Australia, where there was no CFMEU labour.
Yeah.
How did you get away with that, and how come you're still alive?
Well, they're all bloody talk. That's basically, they were all talk 30 years ago, and they're all...
So they're not really that scary?
Nah.
And the bikies are not really... Well, I found it interesting in that 60 Minutes piece that John Setka himself was on camera, allegedly, dropping that suitcase at that guy's... It's like, mate, haven't you got... Isn't there someone in the underworld who could have got to do that for you? Like,
now, the whole purpose of this is to intimidate the LNP politicians, right? They're all very timid people to start with, and they're pretty easy to intimidate. And what happens is, I just mentioned before, the things you sort of need to do to get them off the sites. And the quid pro quo is that our contract construction costs will drop by about half. So it's worth doing. What happens is, if they start to do that, they'll get a visit from the Master Builders Association, who will give them the double whammy. All right? The first whammy is, Minister, now's not the time to do this. The contractors are very unhappy with what you're proposing to do here. They all think they think they're helping the contractors. That's the first whammy. So you get the sort of cognitive dissonance.
Yep.
Right.
What? I'm the minister, and I'm like, oh my God.
What have I done? What have I done?
The Olympics are gone if I do anything.
And then you get the second thing, and this is the crucial part, is that the Master Builders Association, or anybody will tell them, it doesn't have to be them, will tell them that, look, Minister, you have this works program, you've got these hospitals and schools and police stations you want to build. Everyone knows the CFMEU will come and erect those sites. Your colleagues will be very unhappy with you, Minister. And of course, they believe it. That's the thing. Because it's going on all the time. Even what we're reading about in the paper in the administration of the CFMEU, I have no doubt it's probably just a tidy up thing. Like, who cares? But they're making it out as big, bikies and illegal and boom. It's building the image so that
they're scary.
So that they're scary, and there's no one easier to scare than a politician. Unfortunately,
right.
But they're the same everywhere. It's not like
no party preference there.
No,
it's universal.
They're all the same. They're the same worldwide. So that's how the system works. So now's not the time. In your next term, Minister, will be the line. So don't hold your breath for any change. It would be easy to do, but you need someone determined. You need a determined Premier who's prepared to follow it through. Bang, 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 bang.
Well, let's hope Queensland gets one of those.
Well, you can only hope.
Yep. Well, Graeme, thank you for your time. Thank you for explaining this to us. It is an extraordinary thing to understand. Obviously, we are open to having the Master Builders Association and the CFMEU spokespeople come on the show with you and chat all this out.
Happy to talk to them.
Yep, happy to talk about it. Happy to have you on. Happy to give you equal airtime to counter any of the claims that Graeme has made. So we put that invite out there right now publicly. But yeah, fascinating story, and amazing that you were able to pull that off and actually deliver those buildings cheaper back in the 1990s, and hopefully we'll see a bit more of it happening in the future if we get this little game under control. But it's interesting that we have to understand the game is not just about the CFMEU.
Correct.
It's about the whole way the thing is set up and how the government tenders are done.
It's the contractors that are the problem.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Great to talk to you, sir. Now, if you'd like to find out more about the red unions, the alternative unions, you can jump online onto Google and just Google Red Union, and it'll come up Red Union Australia, and you'll see all the information if you're a nurse, if you're a teacher, if you're a builder and you're interested, or a doctor and you want to have an alternative voice and pay a lot less union fees, I understand too. You can check that out for yourself. Hope you enjoyed that clip. The Other Side is your weekly analysis of the media's best news and commentary without the woke, and we need your support. Please make sure you subscribe to our channel on YouTube and follow us on X at The Other Side on X. It's all totally free to do that, but we could always do with your financial support too. So if you'd like to make a donation, click the Super Thanks button on YouTube with a little $ and thanks on it right under the video frame below. Even a $2 donation will really help us. And if you're watching on YouTube, do check out the full episode that this clip came from right here.